Have you ever found yourself lying awake at 2 a.m., staring at your phone, rereading that one text from him, "I love you," and yet, just 2 days later, you catch him liking his ex's bikini photo and mysteriously disappearing on a guy's night out? But here's the crazy part. Research shows over 65% of men who say "I love you" can't even define what love actually means. Let that sink in for a second. Yeah, we've all been there. You start running a full FBI investigation. Girl, you could apply for the CIA at this point. You're checking timestamps, zooming into Instagram, stories like you're analyzing a crime scene. And at 2 a.m., it hits you. What the hell is going on inside his head? Does he love me? Or is this just the world's longest game of emotional dodgeball? But let me give it to you straight. This isn't about you not being enough. It's about a silent war raging inside him. Let me prove it with a real story. One of my coaching clients, let's call him Mike, was the perfect on-paper guy. Tall, handsome corporate job. Looked like he fell out of a GQ magazine. But emotionally, this man couldn't have a serious conversation longer than 5 minutes without cracking a joke or scrolling his phone. One day during a session, I asked Mike, "Why do you keep saying you're ready for love, but run the second things get serious?" He looked at me, half laughed, and said, "Honestly, if she really knew what I'm dealing with, she wouldn't even like me." And that's when it hit me. So many men are walking around with this invisible Superman cape, saving the day, performing, showing up like they've got it all figured out. But under that cape, there's a terrified, exhausted Clark Kent, just hoping no one sees how deeply he's struggling. You see, society trained them from day one. Big boys don't cry. Real men don't show weakness. So they perform, they conquer, they seduce. But they rarely, if ever, sit still and actually feel. That's why while you're there, asking, "Can we talk about this?" he's planning his exit, like Jason Bourne in a high-speed car chase. But here's the good news. Once you understand this hidden struggle, you'll finally stop blaming yourself and start setting boundaries that protect both your heart and your peace. And that's exactly what we're diving into today. I'm going to break down why men fear commitment more than losing their fantasy football league, why they say "I love you" but still cheat and brace yourself, why for some men casual sex feels safer than real connection. So grab your coffee or, hey, maybe pour a glass of wine, because things are about to get real. Let's peel back that Superman cape and figure out what's really hiding underneath. Ready? Let's start with the one thing that terrifies men more than their mom finding their browser history: commitment. All right, let's talk about the one word that makes some men sweat harder than a first date at a vegan restaurant when all they eat is steak: commitment. Now you're probably thinking, it's just a word. Why is it so terrifying? But here's a fact that might just blow your mind. Over 70% of men who fear commitment secretly struggle with low self-worth. And most of them don't even realize it. They're out there dodging commitment like it's a dodgeball tournament. And deep down, it's not because of you, it's because of them. You see, from the time they're little boys, they're handed a script: be strong, be tough, don't cry, and for heaven's sake, never show fear. So they grow up wearing these emotional hazmat suits, completely sealed off from anything that feels too real. And commitment, that's not just a promise to them. It feels like standing naked under a spotlight with a flashing sign that says, "Here are all my insecurities. Please don't run." Let me tell you a story. One of my coaching clients, let's call him Chris, had it all. 3 businesses before 30, driving the latest Tesla. His life looked like an Instagram success reel. But emotionally, my man was a world-class escape artist. Houdini could have taken notes. The second a woman asked, "So, where is this going?" he'd vanish like he pressed a self-destruct button. In one of our sessions, I asked Chris, "What's the real fear here?" And without missing a beat, he said, "If she really knew the mess I'm hiding, she'd leave. And I'd rather leave first." And that right there, that's the hidden truth. So many men are terrified. You'll see the scared, imperfect, insecure version of them they've been hiding for years. And instead of risking that exposure, They choose the exit door. I call this the Superman syndrome. Out in the world, they're heroes saving the day, closing deals, leading with confidence. But back home, they're exhausted. Clark Kent scared to death that if they take off the cape, you won't believe in them anymore. And the worst part, they don't even realize how much that cape is strangling them. This is why you see them self-sabotage relationships. One day they say, "I'm not ready for something serious," and a week later they're posting couple photos with someone new, someone who doesn't challenge them, doesn't demand depth, just surface-level good times and pizza nights. And here's where it gets heartbreaking. You sitting there thinking, "What did I do wrong? Why wasn't I enough?" But hear me loud and clear, it was never about you. This is about his unresolved war with himself. And until he's brave enough to face his own reflection, without the cape, without the performance, no woman, no matter how amazing, can love him into wholeness. So what's the takeaway here? If a man tells you he's not ready, believe him the first time. Don't turn it into a personal mission to fix him. You're not his therapist, and you're definitely not his emotional rehab center. What you can do is stand tall, keep your standards high, and wait for the man who's already fought that internal battle, who's willing to stand in front of you, cape off, imperfections exposed, and say, "I'm ready, I'm here, and I'm not running." And trust me, those men exist. They might not look like they walked out of a superhero movie, but they're the real heroes, building authentic, unshakable emotional connections. Speaking of emotional connections, let's talk about the next big mystery. Why is it that a man can sleep with you on the second date without blinking, but the thought of handing you his phone, now that makes him break out in a cold sweat? Stick with me. This is about to get really juicy. All right, this is the one that really messes with your head, right? You're thinking, how is it that he can get completely naked with me in under 2 dates? But if I even glance at his phone, he looks like he's entering DEFCON 1. Ladies, welcome to the emotional paradox that is the modern man. Let me break this down in a way that actually makes sense, because this is about way more than just who's texting him at 2 a.m. For many men, casual sex feels safer than emotional intimacy. Read that again. Sex, something that's supposed to be deeply vulnerable, becomes just another performance, another checklist item. Why? Because performance is familiar. Vulnerability, that's foreign territory. Think about it like this. Giving you his body, that's a controlled environment. He knows the script, he knows the moves, but giving you his phone, whew, that's unfiltered access to the messy backstage of his life. The insecurities, the impulsive late-night DM attempts, the group chats where emotional maturity goes to die. His phone is like the diary he never intended anyone to read. Now let me tell you about one of my past clients. Let's call him Alex. Great guy on the surface, but he had a little, let's call it, digital double life. I'm talking Instagram, flirting, hidden Snapchat convos, and a folder in his phone labeled taxes that absolutely did not contain spreadsheets. In one session, I asked him flat out, "Alex, why are you doing this? You say you really like this girl, so why sabotage it?" And his response was painfully honest. He said, "Because if she knew everything, she'd leave, and I'd rather keep some control over what she sees and when she sees it." Boom! That's the key word right there, control. Men, like Alex, aren't necessarily proud of this behavior. They're just terrified of being seen before they're ready to be judged. They compartmentalize their lives like apps on their phone. You get access to the dating app, but the emotional vulnerability app, oh, that's locked under triple security. And a password, even he forgot. Now here's where it gets real. A lot of women mistake this for simple immaturity or even cheating instincts. And sometimes it is, but often it's something deeper. Men have been conditioned to protect their emotional messiness at all costs. They learned early on that sharing too much, especially with a woman they admire, could lead to rejection. And rejection tied to who they really are feels like death to the ego. So they keep it surface level, just enough to keep you interested, but not enough to truly risk losing you. And here's the tragic part. They don't realize that the very thing they fear being seen and accepted fully is exactly what would set them free. So what's the lesson here? Number 1, stop trying to hack his phone. Start paying attention to how he shows up in real life. If he's emotionally unavailable, his phone is just a symptom, not the problem. Number 2, set boundaries early. Don't hand out relationship benefits to someone who's still operating at a situationship mindset. And number 3, this one's for my guys. If you're watching, if you have to hide it, ask yourself why you're even doing it. That tiny hit of validation you get from that DM, is it really worth the slow destruction of something real? Now, ladies, I'm not saying forgive and forget every red flag, but I am saying understand the deeper game being played. If a man is only giving you the surface version of himself, it's because that's the only version he feels safe letting you see. But remember, you're not here for surface. You're not here to be an extra app on his home screen. You're here to be the one he unlocks the whole system for. And if he can't or won't, girl, delete yourself from his life before he even thinks about ghosting you. Speaking of deleting, let's talk about the biggest emotional malware infecting modern relationships. Why men say I love you, but still cheat. And trust me, this one's going to hurt before it heals. Stay with me. Here's the thing that really breaks hearts wide open. He looks you straight in the eyes and says, I love you. And a week later, you're piecing together the world's worst puzzle with his texts, his location, history, and that mystery earring you found under the passenger seat. So let's just ask the brutal question out loud. If he loves you, why the hell did he cheat? The answer, it's not that simple, but it's definitely not what you think. Most men don't cheat because they're evil masterminds, plotting to destroy your trust while stroking a villain's cat. Nope. It's usually something way less cinematic and way more tragic. They don't love themselves enough to believe they're worthy of a real deep committed love. Let me say that again. For the people in the back, self-loathing and unresolved insecurities drive way more cheating than lust ever does. Let me tell you about a guy I coached. Let's call him Brandon. This man could write poetry on a napkin during lunch plan, the most romantic date nights, and tell his girlfriend she was his soulmate. And yet on business trips, it was like he turned into a completely different person. When we finally got real in one of our sessions, he confessed something that shocked even me. He said, when I'm with her, I feel this pressure to be perfect. And the second I start doubting myself, instead of facing it, I run to someone who doesn't expect anything from me. That hit me hard. For Brandon, cheating wasn't about finding someone better. It was about escaping the crushing weight of his own insecurities. With a stranger, there's no pressure to perform emotionally, no expectations of growth or vulnerability. Just quick validation, temporary relief from that nagging voice in his head saying you're not enough. And here's the worst part. This man genuinely loved his girlfriend, but because he didn't believe he deserved that kind of love, he kept sabotaging it before she could see the real him and walk away first. It's that old toxic belief system. I'm just a dog. This is how men are. You know where that starts. Middle school locker rooms, high school peer pressure, and a society that clowns any man who chooses loyalty over lust. He's been taught since he was 13 that sleeping around makes him a man, but staying faithful somehow makes him soft or weak. And by the time he hits adulthood, that garbage belief is so deeply rooted, he doesn't even realize it's ruining his chances at real happiness. And ladies, let me pause here for a second, because I know how this feels. When a man cheats, it doesn't just break your heart, it makes you question your entire worth. You start replaying every conversation, every outfit you wore, every time you said no to his favorite meal, and think, what did I miss? What should I have done differently? But hear me when I say this loud and clear, his betrayal is not a reflection of your value. It's a reflection of his brokenness, period. Now, this doesn't mean you excuse the behavior. Oh no, we're not giving out. It's okay, your broken free passes over here. But it does mean you stop internalizing his choices as some sort of proof that you weren't enough. Here's the hard truth and the freeing truth all at once. No woman can love a man into healing if he's not willing to do the work himself. So what's the lesson here? If he says I love you but can't stay faithful, ask yourself, is he confusing love with attachment, comfort, or just fear of being alone? Because real love, healthy love, comes with responsibility. It comes with sacrifice. And if he's not willing to give that, then he doesn't love you in the way you deserve to be loved. And for the men watching, if you recognize yourself in this, let me be real with you. That cheap validation you're chasing, it's like drinking salt water to quench your thirst. The more you chase it, the emptier you're going to feel. Heal that part of you that feels unworthy of loyalty before you lose the one person who would have stood by you through anything if only you had stood by her. Now, speaking of chasing the wrong things, let's dive into the cultural programming that makes so many men believe they have to collect bodies to feel like real men. Buckle up, because this next part is where things get raw. Let's take a pause from all the heavy relationship talk and turn the focus inward, because here's the truth: before anyone else can love you, right, you have to start showing up for yourself. And no, I'm not talking about treating yourself to a fancy latte and calling it self-care, although hey, no judgment if that's part of your routine. I'm talking about real, uncomfortable, powerful self-connection. The kind that makes you want to avoid eye contact with yourself in the bathroom mirror, because you know the truth is hiding right there in your own reflection. So let me introduce you to something that's simple but wildly uncomfortable: the mirror exercise. Now, if you're already rolling your eyes, thinking, that sounds cheesy, trust me, I get it. I thought the same thing. Right until the moment I actually stood there locked eyes with myself and couldn't hold that stare for longer than 30 seconds without looking away. Because when it's just you and the mirror, no filters, no distractions, no performance, you're face to face with the version of yourself that's been waiting to be seen and heard for years. Here's how it works. First, find a quiet space and stand in front of a mirror. And not the kind of glance you throw while brushing your teeth. I mean, really look right into your own eyes. Start with just 60 seconds. No talking yet, just breathing. Notice what comes up: discomfort, shame. Maybe you laugh it off. Yeah, that's a defense mechanism. Sit with that. Then when you're ready, speak directly to yourself, out loud. Yeah, it feels weird. But say the words you've probably never heard from anyone else, or worse, never said to yourself. Start with this: I'm proud of you. I'm sorry for the times I ignored what you needed. And from now on, I'm listening. You can add whatever comes up, even the messy, tearful stuff. The point isn't to say it perfectly. The point is to finally have the conversation you've been avoiding. One of my clients, let's call him Daniel, did this every morning for a month. At first, he couldn't last 2 minutes without walking away. But by the end of that month, he wasn't just tolerating his own reflection. He was starting to believe the words he was saying. And that's when everything changed. His confidence shifted. His relationships improved. Because once you stop running from yourself, you stop accepting half-hearted love from people who aren't even brave enough to show up for you the way you've started showing up for yourself. So here's my challenge to you. Before you scroll to the next video, just try it. Tonight, tomorrow morning, 5 minutes. See what comes up. And hey, if this hits home for you, don't just keep it to yourself. Share this video with someone who needs that reminder too. Drop a comment and tell me what came up for you when you tried the mirror exercise. I read every single one, and who knows, your breakthrough might just inspire someone else's. If this moment stirred something in you, hit that subscribe button. Not because you should, but because every week we dive deeper into conversations like this. Conversations that remind you that healing isn't about being perfect. It's about being real. All right, take a deep breath, because up next, we're going even further into the hidden wounds that keep men trapped in cycles of anger and shame. and how to finally break free. You don't want to miss this. Let's get real for a second. We've all been there, that moment during an argument when your heart's racing. Your face feels hotter than your iPhone after a 3-hour FaceTime call. And suddenly you're saying things you didn't even know were loaded in the chamber. It's like your brain completely checked out and left your mouth on autopilot. And what's the autopilot running on? Pure unfiltered rage and regret waiting to happen. So how do we stop that emotional train before it derails everything? Let me introduce you to what I call the 5-step emotional reset, or, as I like to say, how to keep your relationships from ending over who left the damn socks on the floor again. Step 1. Stop the flame. Hit pause. Before you combust, the second you feel that heat rise, stop. Literally, stop mid-sentence if you have to. Take a deep breath, like you're about to blow out candles on a birthday cake for someone you're only mildly happy for. This is what's called a pattern interrupt. Your brain is wired to go down the same argument path every time, unless you physically disrupt it. Pro tip: keep a small object nearby, a bracelet, a coin in your pocket when you touch it. That's your signal to pause. Sounds silly, maybe, but it works. Step 2. Name the demon. Identify the real emotion. You're not just mad. Anger is a cover emotion. Underneath it, hurt, fear, feeling disrespected, feeling unseen. Ask yourself quietly, what am I really feeling right now? Is it rejection? Is it fear they're going to leave? Is it frustration because you don't feel heard? Naming the emotion weakens its control over you. Like shining a flashlight in the dark, suddenly that scary shadow is just a coat rack. Step 3. Shift the scene. Physically change your environment. Get up. Walk to a different room. Splash cold water on your face, like you're in a dramatic movie scene. Step outside for fresh air. Why? Because your environment holds emotional energy. Sitting in the same space, locked in that same staring contest of doom, keeps you trapped in the conflict loop. And if all else fails, play your emergency happy song. Yes, you need one. Mine's September by Earth, Wind and Fire. Try staying angry while that's playing. I dare you. Step 4. Ask before attack. Seek to understand, not win. This is the moment where most people mess it up. They either shut down or lash out. Instead, lean in with curiosity. Say something like, I might be misunderstanding this. Can you help me see where you're coming from? Notice the difference. You're not accusing. You're inviting a conversation, not a courtroom battle. And 9 times out of 10, the thing you were about to fight to the death over, it's probably a miscommunication. Step 5. Speak. From calm, not fire, only talk. When your heart rate drops, your body tells the truth before your mouth ever does. If your heart's still racing and your fists are clenched, you're not ready to solve anything. Take a moment. Breathe deep. When you can speak slowly with control, that's when real communication happens. And hey, it's okay to say, I need 15 minutes to cool off, but I promise we'll finish this conversation. That's not avoiding, it's protecting the relationship from your temporary emotions. Let's be real, mastering this takes practice. You're not going to nail it perfectly every time, but every time you try, you're rewiring your brain for healthier emotional responses. So next time that familiar heat starts rising, remember, you're in control, not your anger. Now, speaking of emotional control, in our next part, we're going to explore a whole different battlefield, the silent wars men fight with themselves, the deep traumas they carry, and how those unresolved wounds are quietly wrecking their relationships. This is where the real healing starts. Stay with me. Ladies, let's have a heart-to-heart. Okay, we've all been told know your worth, but they forgot to mention the fine print that goes with that. Like how to actually hold your value without making every date feel like a tense job interview or a corporate negotiation over who's paying for the guac. Here's the magic formula: high value, soft energy. You can set high standards without walking into every interaction with the emotional subtlety of a wrecking ball. And trust me, no man has ever thought, wow, I really fell for her because she had a flawless PowerPoint presentation on why she deserves loyalty. So how do you keep your value without creating tension? Let's start with this. Stop explaining. Start demonstrating. High-value women don't walk into a room announcing their worth, they embody it. Instead of saying, "I'm not the kind of woman who tolerates disrespect," show it. The first time someone crosses a boundary, handle it with calm, graceful action. You don't have to raise your voice. Your absence speaks louder than any lecture ever will. Here's a real-life example. One of my clients, Rachel, used to think setting boundaries meant laying down a whole list of non-negotiables on the first date. Picture this, the poor guy hasn't even finished his appetizer, and she's already on point 7 of why she refuses to date men who can't communicate their childhood traumas. Look, I'm all for clarity, but let's leave some mystery before we dive headfirst into therapy hour. Okay, what I taught Rachel instead was the power of playful boundaries. Imagine a guy asks, "Why don't you just come over instead of going out?" Instead of going full serious mode and replying, "Because I'm not that kind of woman," which by the way just creates tension. She smiled and said, "Oh, trust me, I'm worth putting on real pants for." Flirty, confident, no tension. And guess what? He asked her out properly the next day. That's high-value soft energy in action. You don't need to fight for your value. You just need to hold it like it's the most natural thing in the world. Because it is. And when you live like that, something incredible happens. Men step up or step out. And either way, you win. So remember, these standards don't have to sound like ultimatums. They should feel like a beautiful invitation for the right person to rise to the occasion. Now, in our next part, we're taking this a layer deeper. We're going to talk about why some men can't rise to that occasion because they're carrying invisible emotional wounds that they've never been taught how to heal. Stay close. What you're about to hear might just change the way you see every emotionally unavailable man in your life. All right, we've spent a lot of time talking about the what, why men act the way they do, why they pull away, why they self-sabotage. But now it's time to talk about the deeper question. What's really going on underneath all that behavior? Because here's the thing, no one says out loud. A lot of men are walking around emotionally wounded, and they don't even know it. You ever see those movies where the hero gets shot, and he just keeps running, like nothing happened, and you're sitting there yelling at the screen, like, "Dude, you're bleeding out. Take care of that." That's modern masculinity in a nutshell. Men are taught to power through, to be strong, and to never, God forbid, admit they're hurting. So what happens? They walk around emotionally bleeding out, covering it up with success, humor, sarcasm, casual sex, or working 80 hours a week, so they don't have to sit still long enough to actually feel something. Let me share a story. One of my clients, Jason, looked like he had it all together. Corporate VP by 35, a house that looked like it belonged on HGTV, and a dating life that, well, let's just say the man had frequent flyer miles on Tinder. But every relationship he started ended the same way. The moment a woman tried to get emotionally close, he'd pull away or sabotage it. In one of our sessions, after weeks of him dodging the hard stuff, I asked him directly, "Jason, when was the first time you felt like you had to handle everything alone?" That question hit him like a brick wall. He sat there in complete silence before quietly saying, "I was 8. My dad left and my mom broke down. From that day on, it was on me to be the man of the house." That's the day his emotional armor went on. And here's the thing, most men don't even realize that the way they shut down in relationships today is directly connected to those childhood wounds. They think it's just who they are, but really, it's who they had to become to survive. So, how do we start healing that? First, understand, this healing isn't about blaming. It's about reclaiming. You're not going back to sit in pain. You're going back to understand it, so it stops controlling you from the shadows. Here's a simple framework I walk my clients through. Acknowledge the wound. Stop pretending it's just how things are. Identify where the pain started. Was it a father who wasn't there? A mother who leaned too hard on you? A coach who told you that tears were weakness? Allow the emotions to surface. Yeah, this is the hard part. And no, it doesn't make you less of a man. It makes you brave as hell. If you've never ugly cried in the car at least once during this process, you're probably still holding back. And that's okay. But the freedom that's waiting after you let it all out. Practice reparenting yourself. This might sound woo-woo, but stay with me. You become the father you didn't have, the nurturer you never got. Next time you catch yourself spiraling in self-criticism, ask, what would I say to an 8-year-old version of me right now? Because I promise you, he didn't need toughness. He needed compassion. And that kid, he's still in there waiting for you to finally show up for him. Find safe brotherhood spaces. Healing doesn't happen in isolation. If all your male friends only talk about sports and who's winning fantasy football, it's time to widen the circle. Find spaces, men's groups, retreats, even just one friend where you can talk about the real stuff. And if you don't have that yet, start by being that safe space for yourself. Take action toward emotional freedom. Therapy, journaling, breathwork, boxing. Doesn't matter how you start, just start. Healing isn't a Pinterest quote. It's daily, sometimes messy work. But every day you choose to face it, you're breaking the cycle. So here's the final truth. You can't out-success your pain. You can't out-achieve it. You can't out-party it. The only way out is through. And to the women watching, if you love a man who's clearly fighting these silent battles, remember, you can't fight them for him. But you can love him enough to encourage him to do the work. And love yourself enough to walk away if he won't. Now, before we wrap, we're ending this series with something powerful. What does it really mean to be a comprehensive man? Not perfect, not performing, but a man fully at peace with who he is. Stick around for the final piece of this puzzle. This is where everything we've talked about comes together. And trust me, you don't want to miss this. So here we are. After this emotional roller coaster, you've probably laughed, maybe cried a little, and at some point, seriously considered texting your therapist or, let's be real, your group chat of besties who double as unpaid life coaches. But if there's one thing I hope you're walking away with, it's this: men aren't broken, they're conditioned. And the same goes for all of us. Behind every distant text, every fear of commitment, every terrible boys will be boys decision is just a human being trying to figure out how to love and be loved without losing themselves. So whether you're a man silently battling wounds you were told to ignore, or a woman wondering why loving him sometimes feels like trying to hug a cactus, remember, healing is messy, but it's possible. And it starts one honest conversation, one brave boundary, one tiny mirror exercise at a time. And hey, if this conversation stirred something in you, if it made you rethink love, relationships, or even how you show up for yourself, don't let it end here. Hit that subscribe button, not because you're supposed to, but because this is what we do here every week on Limitless Confidence. We get real, we get raw, and we remind each other that growth isn't about perfection. It's about showing up for the messy middle and doing the work anyway. And if you know someone who needs this message, someone who's been stuck in the same emotional cycles, send them this video. Be the reason their healing journey starts today. Now take a deep breath. And remember, you're already doing the hardest part. You're choosing awareness. And that's where every transformation begins. I'll see you in the next one, same time, same honesty, and maybe even more breakthroughs. Stay limitless, stay confident. You've got this.